Hello, thank you so much for the invitation to participate in this workshop and for organizing it. The title of my presentation is Urban Creativity in Dakar, Post-Colonial Dialogues Through Art in the City. My name is Estrella Sendra and I work for King's College London. In this presentation, I will focus on Dakar in order to gain understanding on the relationship between arts, creativity, urban spaces, and the world within the context of a post-colonial city. I will do so with reference to two key theoretical frameworks, Dakar as an art world city and also as an Afrotopia. The case studies included here include film, urban art, and festivals. In these case studies, we understand the city as a narrative space, where urban art is actually key in the reimagining of the city, and thus also of the creation of new narratives of the city, country, and the continent. I will start by locating Dakar in the world map in order to then theorize Dakar as both an art world city and as an Afrotopia, and then we will look at all of these different case studies of festivals and film, looking, for instance, at the way in which certain abandoned spaces are re-inhabited, and then also looking at the set-cetal movement and an exhibition called Territoire. Dakar is the capital of Senegal in West Africa. I've put a point over there to Dakar and also London, where I'm connecting from. But if we actually go to Dakar, we will see that art is everywhere. In this presentation, there is also an attempt to archive all of these different expressions of culture and desires of the continent through arts in urban Dakar. I wanted to share here some understandings or depictions of the city in dialogue with different artists and inhabitants that are included in the book by Oumar Ndao, a Senegalese artist who has already passed, in one of my favorite books actually. The book, entitled Dakar l'Ineffable, depicts a city that relates the stories of devils and genies, a city that is a storyteller and where myths abound. There are so many stories told through the city, it's impossible to just tell one single story. And this is why there is a collage technique, because the artist wanted to give voice to the anecdotes of its inhabitants. What can we conclude from all of this? That never will the story of the city be told in its entirety. When trying to tell my own story, I am informed by the idea of art world city in the work of Joanna Grabski, a filmmaker of the documentary film market Imaginary, and the book Art World City. Dakar is an art world city in that it's multi-scalar. It's an urban site for artistic production, mediation, and transaction. You will have seen here various images that I have been taking in spaces. Some continue and some have disappeared over time. Joanna Grabski proposes this paradigm to account for the imbrication of the creative economy and the urban environment, as well as the interplay of local and global dynamics that shape Dakar's art world. Dakar has come to be seen as one of the African continent's premier sites for contemporary artistic expression and a critical node of an ever globalizing world. The artists participate both in Dakar platforms but also global art platforms, and this exemplifies the way in which the city's contemporary creative economy is both local and international at the same time. The city's art scene emerges from and is shaped by the opportunities that are brought precisely by Dakar itself, by the urban life. It's an expression of dreams, of aspirations, of what one could be, of what the continent could be. In this sense, Dakar can be understood as an Afrotopia, that is, an active utopia, as understood by Felwine Sarr, a Senegalese philosopher. It is also about thinking of a project of civilization that places the human being at the heart of its concerns, suggesting a better balance between the different orders, economic, cultural, and spiritual. This is, according to Felwine Sarr, necessary to contribute to the positive transformation of African societies. This is precisely the main responsibility of African intellectuals, thinkers, and artists. What often happens in Dakar is that there is a delocalization of its present in a perpetual future, because the African continent is the future that it will be, and this rhetoric suggests in hollow that it is not, that its coincidence in a present time is flawed, because we are continuously thinking about what it could become. Now we are going to look at different case studies, and I'm doing this through a mixed methodology based on fieldwork research, collaborations, textual analysis, qualitative interviews, and cultural work. Dakar is crucial in the cultural festival scene. It was home to the first World Festival of Black Arts in 1966, and this was itself a window to the world. A place where culture became the form of expressing what we wanted the continent to be. It was also a performance of a philosophical movement called negritude that was advocated by the first president of Senegal, Léopold Sédar Senghor, that it was about going back to the black world, embracing the black roots, and using this as a weapon for decolonization. This would inform the production of many artists of the first 2 decades after independence, and it continues to inform artistic production today. Dakar is also today home of a very important arts biennale, Dakar. This is the most discussed, loved, hated, and thought-provoking and game-changing exhibition featuring contemporary art from an African perspective. Actually, from diverse African perspectives, as suggested by Vincent. But the space that it's devoted to urban arts in this Biennale of Dakar is still under discussion. And even when there was a collaboration back in 2016, the way in which one of the spaces that had been used by the organizers of the Biennale of Dakar and the Festa de Ash was populated in a very different way and led to a very different audience engagement than, for example, an open air space that a hip hop festival like Festa de Ash is very used to using, which is the Maison du Tasek. One of the really interesting aspects about these festivals is that sometimes they inhabit or re-inhabit abandoned spaces that were once expressions of ideas for the future of the continent. This has been called by the Jong and Quinn ruins of utopia. And it's very illustrative of what happens today in Dakar, a place where sometimes it is difficult to distinguish those homes under long-term construction from those in ruins. When we look, for example, at the facade of the Ancien Palais de la Justice, we can see that there's still some letters over there, but we are putting below some other letters that are bringing another life to this space, expressing ideas from a different present to the one that was for this building back in the days. This is, for example, how the space looked like in the Arts Biennale in 2016, and ever since then, it has been used for many different other events. In a way, through these artistic interventions, the places become alive, vital infrastructures in all sorts of ways with the materials that compose them, but also the labor that goes behind that artistic intervention. This doesn't only happen in festivals, it also happens in films where there is a careful choice of locations. For example, in this film by Senegalese filmmaker based in France, Alain Gomis, although now he's mainly based in between France and Senegal. This character is going through an existential crisis, so it is not a coincidence that he is walking in this space that is abandoned but is still there. Pomti. And in the words of the filmmaker, the idea is to compose a universe following the needs of the stories. The place where there is the judging scene, the one that we just saw, is located at the École William Pomti, where Senghor and all the others were educated. That place in ruins, absolutely in ruins, but which is the image of Africa. And he continues, the court space where Awa is judged was also where Houphouët-Boigny, Senghor, and all the others were in that big theater. So the monologue is also against all that. Intellectuals who led the independent Senegal, but where did all that go? The ruins are therefore an image of an African ruins ruined by them. It is very symbolic. And we can continue with a very interesting interview actually I had within the context of the BFI London Film Festival. Another space where we have seen urban art expressing ideas about the city and the future that can be is, for example, through the Set Setal movement. This involved cleaning the streets. It was an activist movement and it was led by musician Youssou N'Dour, among others. I have put here the lyrics translated from Wolof, so feel free to listen to them. They are available on YouTube, for example, and to see the way in which this idea of cleaning the city is a first step towards cleaning the mind. This also, for example, happens within the context of Youssou N'Dour's song Youssou N'Dour's and Charlot song Set, where we see also that call to getting clean. There is also a urban arts festival where the idea is to paint murals and as an invitation to raise awareness about the need to look after our cities and the environment. This is called the Festival Xeex, that is the Wolof term for fight. Wolof is the most widely spoken lingua franca in Senegal, by the way, I haven't said that. In this mural, for example, we have a message also in Wolof. Engage means the sea. And over here we have a message that says, the sea is not a bin, we must all take care of it. Fight. And the city becomes therefore a field of intervention, a way of already solving or dealing with so many problems that are associated with modern life. It becomes an expression of dreams about what it could be, but also about transformation of what happens through direct action. In a way, there is a festivalized urban space during these times in which the festival happens, where Dakar, the city, becomes an alive and inclusive museums, able to host all of those different artistic expressions of dreams. Territoire is another really interesting case study. It's a multidisciplinary arts exhibition and creative lab that happened last spring in Dakar. And it was a feminist project led by a wide array of artists, psychologists, and researchers who were trying to raise awareness about street harassment faced by women in Dakar, and the results were presented in various ways. For example, an exhibition in the Museum of Women over there in Dakar by the Corniche, and we can see an image here in the bottom. And this was also an image of a catalog that became available in September, and that includes also results from surveys with people from the city about how they experience it and how they can imagine this territory and alternative movements and flows between it. It was a project that emerged from the realization that women do not feel safe, especially at night, which makes it very challenging actually to leave the family home. So it affects the social condition of women. And it was really interesting that this was done in dialogue. It was done through a methodology that was called creative listening to the voices of the giants, the women. What can we conclude from all of this? Well, as Akin Adesokan suggests, It is individuals as artists, writers, activists, filmmakers, musicians, and so on, who have been able to clearly articulate the problems of post-colonial societies. Urban art plays a key role in the reimagining of the city. Murals, screens, and festival spaces become living canvases where Afrotopias are both performed and expressed. Together, they foster an art-informed post-colonial creative dialogue that contribute to articulating new narratives of the city, country, and the continent. These grassroots initiatives are able to shape cultural policy and the development of creative economies. Thank you very much for listening. I've included a list of references that I've been using here in case you want to consult them.